The morning of my wedding felt more like a funeral. Rain poured outside, soft at first, then heavy, beating against the window like someone knocking to be let in. White lilies filled every corner of our house, the same flowers that had covered my mother's coffin years ago. Their sweet scent made my stomach turn. "Stand still, Lyra," my stepmother, Lady Corvina, hissed as she yanked the corset tighter around my ribs. "If you can't even wear a dress properly, how will you act like a queen?" I bit my tongue. Each pull of the string stole my breath. She wanted me to complain, to break. But I'd learned long ago that silence hurt her more than tears. Her fingers, cold and sharp, brushed my hair back. "Almost presentable," she said, studying me the way one might examine a horse before selling it. "You'll do." I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The pale girl staring back didn't look like a bride. She looked like a ghost. My mother's wedding gown hung from my thin frame, the fabric slightly yellowed by age. Around my neck, the only thing I owned that was truly mine, a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon cradling a tiny star. My mother's last gift. She had once said, "As long as you wear this, I'll be with you." That promise was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. My stepmother leaned close, her voice low so no one outside could hear. "Remember our deal, Lyra. You marry King Kale, and he protects this family. If you displease him, if you fail, your sister will suffer. Do you understand?" "Yes, stepmother," I whispered. Her red lips curved into a smile that never touched her eyes. "Good girl. Do whatever he asks. Smile when he speaks. You owe this family everything." I wanted to say I owed her nothing. That my father's death and our ruined estate were because of her greed. But instead, I just nodded. The door burst open and my stepsister Seren swept in. She was everything I wasn't: dark curls, bright eyes, beauty polished like a diamond. Even her dress shimmered, soft blue silk that matched her smug smile. "Well," she said, circling me like a cat, "you look interesting." I forced myself to stay quiet. "The crippled king and the unwanted daughter," she added sweetly. "Perfect match." "Seren," our mother warned, but there was no real anger in her voice. Only pride. Seren twirled a lock of hair around her finger. "I still don't understand why he chose her," she said, glancing at me. "He asked for a bride, and you give him this." My stepmother's expression darkened. "Enough. The carriage is waiting. Come, we must not keep His Majesty waiting." The ride to the palace was long and silent. I sat between my stepmother and Seren, staring out the rain-streaked window. My mother used to tell me that storms washed away sorrow. If that were true, then the heavens themselves were trying to cleanse me. But sorrow clung like a shadow. As the carriage climbed the hill, the royal palace appeared through the mist, a dark mountain of stone and towers, half hidden by clouds. It looked more like a prison than a home. A shiver ran through me. When the carriage stopped, guards opened the door. My stepmother straightened her cloak and gave me one last, sharp look. "Remember what I said. Smile. Be obedient. You are nothing without this chance." I stepped out into the rain, the hem of my mother's dress already soaking through. The palace doors stood tall and cold before me, carved with wolves and stars. They opened with a low groan. Inside, everything gleamed: gold walls, marble floors, silver chandeliers. But the air was cold, lifeless. No laughter, no warmth. Only echoing footsteps and whispers that followed us. A gray-haired woman met us at the entrance. She was tall, dressed in black silk, her face expressionless. "Lady Helena," she introduced herself. "Head of the royal household." Her eyes moved from my stepmother to me, stopping there for a heartbeat longer. "His Majesty awaits. The family will wait here. Lady Lyra, follow me." I turned to my stepmother. She gripped my wrist hard enough to bruise. "Do whatever it takes," she whispered. "Even if it disgusts you." Then she let go. I followed Lady Helena down a long corridor lined with paintings of past kings, proud, powerful men, their eyes seeming to judge me as I passed. My heart hammered with every step. Finally, we stopped before two massive oak doors guarded by soldiers. Lady Helena paused, her tone softening slightly. "You are about to meet a man who has lost much, my lady. His patience is not endless. Choose your words carefully. I swallowed. Why me? Why would he marry a girl like me? She looked at me for a long moment. Because you were kind when no one else was. Then she knocked once, and the doors opened. The royal chamber was dim, lit only by a single fire burning low in the hearth. Shadows danced on the walls, making the room feel alive. I hesitated at the threshold. Enter, a deep voice commanded. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a thud that echoed through the room. At first, all I saw was the firelight glinting off metal. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw him, King Cale Thorn, ruler of the Shadow Kingdom, the man I was to marry. He sat in a chair of dark wood and iron wheels beside the fire. His black hair fell loosely across his forehead. His shoulders were broad, his presence overwhelming even though he wasn't standing. His legs were covered with a heavy fur blanket. But it wasn't his body that frightened me, it was his eyes. Amber gold, sharp as a hawk's. They studied me, measured me, stripped away every layer of false politeness. So, he said quietly, this is the girl they've sold me. His tone wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It was tired, like a man who had seen too much and trusted too little. I curtsied, nearly losing balance. Your Majesty. He tilted his head slightly. Come closer. Let me see the price they put on you. My hands trembled, but I obeyed. When I stood before him, the scent of pine and smoke surrounded me. He reached out suddenly, his fingers catching my chin. I flinched, but he didn't hurt me, only turned my face toward the light. They said you were plain, he murmured, studying me. I suppose that's true. But your eyes, his thumb brushed my lower lip. There's something honest in them. That's rare. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. His touch burned, though his hand was cold. Tell me, Lyra Vale, he said. Do you know why you are here? To marry you, Your Majesty, I managed, my voice shaking. His mouth curved, but it wasn't a smile. Yes. But do you know why you? Why not your sister? The pretty one with the dark hair? I froze. I don't know. He let go of my chin and wheeled his chair toward a table set with crystal decanters. Your stepmother thinks I am a fool. That because I cannot walk, I am desperate. That I would take any girl shoved into my path. He poured himself a drink. But I did not choose her daughter. I chose you. Why? I whispered. He took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving mine. Because when my men visited your home, you were the only one who helped a servant who fell. You were the only one who looked at my emissary, a man with scars, without disgust. His voice dropped. You showed compassion when others showed ambition. I have no use for beauty without heart. My breath caught. I remembered that day, the royal visit, the nervous servants, my stepmother pushing Seren forward like a prize horse. I had been ignored, carrying tea, invisible as always. I didn't know he was your envoy, I said softly. Exactly, Cale said. You were kind without reason. That is a dangerous thing in this palace. He set his glass down and rolled closer until I could feel the heat of the fire and of him. Tomorrow you will become my wife. My queen. Your family will be safe, your debts erased. In return, you will belong to me, completely. The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. Do you understand, Lyra? I swallowed hard. Yes, Your Majesty. No, he said, leaning closer. You don't. But you will. His gaze flicked to my pendant. He reached for it, fingers brushing the silver crescent. For a second, something flickered in his eyes, recognition, surprise, then he let go quickly, as if it burned. Where did you get this? He asked. It was my mother's, I said. She gave it to me before she died. He looked at the fire. Keep it close. Lady Helena reappeared at the door, silent as a shadow. Cale didn't turn toward her, his eyes stayed on me. You may take her, he said. She'll need rest. Tomorrow comes quickly. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. Lyra, he said. I looked back. He watched me with that same intense gaze. I may be broken, he said softly, but I am far from powerless. Remember that before you ever think of following in your sister's footsteps. The doors closed behind me like the lid of a coffin. My heart pounded as Lady Helena led me through silent halls to my chambers. The room was grand, a golden cage filled with silk and luxury I could never enjoy. Lady Helena set a lamp on the table. His Majesty can be difficult, she said quietly. But he is not unjust. Do as he says. Learn quickly. And keep that necklace hidden under your gown. I touched the pendant, confused. Why? Her lips pressed into a thin line. Because there are those in this palace who would kill for it. Then she left me alone. That night I could not sleep. The storm outside grew stronger, wind howling against the windows. I wandered the chamber, touching the unfamiliar furniture, the rich drapes, the empty bed that felt like a stranger's. Tomorrow, I would marry a man feared by his kingdom. Tomorrow, I would belong to a king who might destroy me or save me. I didn't know which. I pressed the pendant to my chest and whispered to the darkness, "Mother, please stay with me." Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled deep and final, like a warning from the gods themselves. The morning came cold and grey, the sky heavy with clouds that promised more rain. The palace bells tolled faintly in the distance, their sound echoing through the long, empty corridors. When Lady Helena entered my room, she didn't ask if I'd slept, she already knew the answer. "His Majesty requests your presence in the gardens," she said, her voice as calm as ever. I followed her through the maze-like halls until we reached a stone balcony that opened to the royal gardens below. Even in winter, the place was beautiful. Vines curled around marble statues, and fountains whispered soft secrets to each other. But the air carried no peace. King Kale waited there, cloaked in black. The wind stirred his hair, and the fur-lined collar of his robe framed a face carved from quiet power. His wheeled chair was beside a long stone table covered in maps and letters. When he saw me, his lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite a frown. "The bride who never smiles," he said. "Sit." I obeyed, lowering myself onto the cold stone bench opposite him. "Do you know why I asked for you this morning?" he asked, his amber eyes locking on mine. I shook my head. "No, Your Majesty." His gaze sharpened. "You are honest. I value that. Most people here only speak to please me." He rolled his chair closer. "Tell me, Lyra, what do you think of me?" The question startled me. I haven't. "Think carefully," he said, his voice low. "There is only truth or cowardice between us." I took a breath. "You seem lonely." That stopped him. For a heartbeat, silence filled the air. The only sound was the faint rustle of wind through the vines. "Lonely," he repeated, his tone unreadable. "Not cruel? Not monstrous? Not broken?" I met his gaze. Perhaps all those things can be true at once. Something flickered in his expression, amusement, maybe, or surprise. "You have courage," he murmured. "Or perhaps you simply don't value your life enough to lie." He picked up a letter from the table and turned it in his hands. "You were sent to me like a gift wrapped in debt. Your stepmother believes she sold her burden. But I don't buy what others throw away." He placed the letter down. "I make bargains." "What kind of bargain?" I asked, uneasy. "The kind that decides who lives and who doesn't," he said. "You are not here to warm my bed or decorate my throne. You are here because this court bleeds corruption, and I need someone untouched by it." My fingers twisted together in my lap. "You think I can help you?" "I know you can," he said simply. "You were raised among wolves yet learned to survive without becoming one. That is a rare skill." I looked away, unsure what to say. "You will learn everything about this palace," he continued. "Every whisper, every secret, every betrayal. You will listen where others speak. Watch where others sleep." "You want me to spy," I said quietly. "I want you to see," he corrected. "To open your eyes." He leaned forward, his voice turning softer but sharper. "If you do this, your family's debts will be cleared forever. Your stepmother will never touch your sister again. But if you betray me—" "I won't," I said quickly. He smiled, a cold, dangerous curve of his lips. "You don't even know what betrayal looks like in this place." He reached into a small box on the table and took out a golden ring set with a deep blue stone. This belonged to my mother, he said. A token of trust. Wear it only when you need my protection. And never remove your pendant. Both may save your life before I can. I took the ring with trembling hands. Why are you telling me all this? Because I trust the untested more than the proven, he said. The proven have already sold their souls. He looked toward the horizon. Tomorrow, we marry. You will wear the crown they all wanted for themselves. And you will make them believe you are harmless. I don't know if I can, I admitted. You can, he said. You simply don't believe it yet. He turned his chair toward the doors. Come. Walk beside me. As we moved through the gardens, I realized something strange. No guard followed us. Only silence. Cale pushed the wheels of his chair easily over the stone paths, his strength clear in every movement. Do you hate me? He asked suddenly. The question startled me. I don't know you well enough to hate you. That's not an answer, he said, his tone almost playful. I don't think hate is what I feel, I said carefully. Fear, perhaps. Confusion. But also, I hesitated. Curiosity. He glanced at me, and the corner of his mouth lifted. Good. Fear I can command. Curiosity is harder to control. When we returned to the palace entrance, he stopped. There will be rumors today. Let them talk. Their words will distract them from their actions. Yes, Your Majesty. He looked at me one last time before Lady Helena appeared. I told you yesterday I may be broken, he said quietly. But do not mistake stillness for weakness. He turned away before I could answer. And as I followed Lady Helena back through the halls, I understood the king might not walk, but everyone in this palace bowed to his shadow. That night, I stood at the window of my chamber, watching lightning flash behind the distant hills. The storm had returned. I could almost feel it whispering through the castle walls, a warning, or a promise. Below, the palace lights flickered like dying stars. I thought of my stepmother, probably celebrating my marriage like a victory. I thought of Seren, dreaming of a crown that would never be hers. And I thought of Cale, the king who looked at me as if he already knew what I would become. I touched the pendant around my neck. The silver crescent felt warm against my skin, pulsing faintly as thunder rolled. Tomorrow, I whispered to myself. Tomorrow everything changes. The palace was a storm of activity. Servants hurried through the corridors with trays, candles, and endless rolls of silk. Everywhere I went, people bowed but never smiled. Hold still, one of the maids murmured as she pinned my hair into place. The crown must sit perfectly. My wedding gown lay across the bed, a masterpiece of ivory silk embroidered with silver threads that shimmered like frost. It wasn't the simple dress my mother left me. This one was made for a queen, and somehow that made it heavier, not lighter. Lady Helena entered, her face unreadable as always. The king insisted on this gown, she said. He was specific about the design. Specific? I asked. Yes. He said it should not hide your strength. I frowned. I don't understand. You will, she replied simply. The servants left once she waved them away. For a long time, she said nothing, just studied me. Then she stepped closer and applied something cool to my cheek, salve that stung faintly. For the mark, she said quietly. I realized she meant the bruise my stepmother had left the day before. She struck you hard, Lady Helena said. You should not allow that kind of cruelty to define you. I met her eyes in the mirror. I didn't have a choice. There is always a choice, she said softly. Sometimes we simply fear the cost. Before I could answer, the door opened. My stepmother and Seren entered, both draped in fine dresses. My, Lady Corvina said, eyes glinting. The king has good taste. You almost look royal. Seren's smile was poison wrapped in honey. If I didn't know better, I'd say you were enjoying this. I stood still, letting their words roll off me. Why are you here? To make sure you don't embarrass us, my stepmother snapped. Remember our agreement. I remember, I said quietly. You made it impossible to forget. Her gaze sharpened. Watch your tone. The king told me yesterday, I said suddenly, meeting her eyes, that you first offered him Seren. The color drained from her face, then returned in a rush of anger. He's mistaken. Is he? I asked. He seemed very sure. His mind is broken like his body, she hissed. Before I could react, her hand struck my cheek again. The sound echoed through the chamber. Mother, Seren gasped, though her voice held more surprise than concern. My stepmother leaned close. You ungrateful wretch. After everything we've done. What have you done? I cut in. Used me. Sold me. Lied to me. Her face twisted. I gave you a future. You gave me chains, I said, my voice steady now. But you forget, a chain can strangle the one who forges it. For the first time, she stepped back as if seeing me properly. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Lady Helena's voice broke the silence. It's time, she said from the doorway. My stepmother recovered her composure, smoothing her gown. Remember your place, Lyra, she said, her tone like a blade. One wrong move and everything crumbles. I looked at her calmly. Then perhaps it's time something did. They left, leaving the faint scent of expensive perfume behind. Lady Helena approached again, placing a delicate silver tiara atop my head. This belonged to the king's mother, she said. He wanted you to wear it tonight. The weight of it made my heart pound. Why me? I whispered. Because, Lady Helena said, adjusting the crown, you are not afraid to look him in the eye. The great hall was transformed into a world of light. Candles burned in crystal chandeliers. Flowers hung from the vaulted ceiling, filling the air with a heavy, sweet scent. Hundreds of nobles filled the room, their jewels catching the firelight. And at the far end of the hall, waiting like a shadow carved from stone, sat King Kale. Even seated in his wheeled chair, he commanded the space. His black ceremonial robe shimmered with silver thread that matched my gown. His crown rested lightly on his dark hair. As I walked down the long aisle, whispers followed me. Poor girl. She'll last a week. He can't even walk, what kind of marriage is this? Each whisper was a blade, but I kept walking. When I reached him, Kale's eyes met mine. For a moment, everything else disappeared. You look like you belong here, he said softly enough that only I could hear. I don't, I replied. Neither do I, he murmured. The ceremony began. The priest's voice droned on about loyalty and sacrifice. When it came time to exchange vows, Kale's gaze locked on mine. With this ring, he said, sliding a band of silver and sapphire onto my finger, I bind your body, mind, and soul to mine. Gasps rippled through the crowd, the words were not part of the traditional vow. I hesitated, but the priest nodded for me to continue. My voice was barely a whisper. With this vow, I will not break. Kale's eyes softened, just a fraction. When the priest pronounced us husband and wife, the hall erupted in cheers that felt hollow. Kale reached for my hand and raised it high for all to see. His grip was firm, grounding. Then he leaned close, his breath brushing my ear. Now you are mine, Queen Lyra. Let them fear you as they fear me. The night blurred into feasts and endless toasts. I sat beside Kale, answering polite questions, smiling when expected. My stepmother watched from a distance, her face tight with false joy. Seren flirted with a noble twice her age. At one point, Kale turned to me. Your cheek, he said quietly. Someone struck you this morning. I froze, cup halfway to my lips. It was nothing, Your Majesty. His fingers brushed my jaw, turning my face toward him. Don't lie to me, Lyra. Not today. Not ever. It was my stepmother, I whispered. His eyes darkened, the warmth in them replaced by something cold and dangerous. For what reason? I asked her why she offered Seren to you first. His jaw clenched. And what did she say? That your mind is broken. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made the air feel colder. Then consider it mercy that I allow her to leave this hall alive. Please, I said quickly. Don't. It will only bring more trouble. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. You defend peace even when it costs you pride. You may make a fine queen yet. And as the music rose again, and the nobles danced below, I realized something unsettling. The king who was supposed to be a monster had just protected me. And the girl who was supposed to be powerless had just learned how dangerous her silence could be. The palace bells rang through the valley as the morning sun rose behind grey clouds. The echo carried across the courtyards and the marble terraces like a warning of things to come. The night's feasts had ended only hours before, but there was no rest for the newly crowned queen. By dawn, the servants had already filled my chamber. They brushed my hair, fastened jewels into the braids, and laced the heavy golden gown around my body. It felt like armor, beautiful, suffocating armor. Lady Helena entered quietly, her eyes taking in every detail. "You must look the part of a queen," she said, her voice low but firm. "They will look for weakness today. Give them none." I nodded, though my stomach twisted. When the servants finished, Lady Helena placed the crown, a lighter, smaller one, upon my head. "Today, the court meets you for the first time," she continued. "They will bow, but most will hate you. You stand between them and their power." "I don't want their power," I whispered. She gave a faint smile. "That's why you were chosen." The royal hall was filled again, but today it wasn't for a wedding. It was for the oath. Every noble, counselor, and royal advisor stood in attendance to swear loyalty to their new queen, or at least pretend to. King Kale waited on his throne, black and gold robes cascading around him. Though seated, his presence filled the room. The fire behind him painted his shadow across the marble floor, long, sharp, unbroken. As I entered, the crowd bowed low. I caught glimpses of faces, some curious, some resentful. Among them, my stepmother and Seren stood near the back, their smiles tight and false. "Queen Lyra of Thorn," the herald announced. "Wife to His Majesty, ruler of the Shadow Kingdom, and bearer of the Crescent Seal." I stepped forward, my heart pounding. Kale's gaze followed every movement. When I reached the dais, he extended his hand. "Kneel," he said softly. The hall fell silent. I lowered myself before him, the cold marble pressing against my knees. Kale leaned forward, his voice carrying through the hall. "The bond between a king and his queen is sacred. It is forged not by blood or desire, but by loyalty. Today, before the gods and my court, you will swear that loyalty to me, and to the throne." I looked up at him. His eyes were unreadable, amber light catching the gold flecks within. "I swear it," I said, my voice steady. "I will serve this crown with truth, with courage, and with heart." He studied me for a long moment, then took a ceremonial blade from the armrest of his throne. Its edge was bright as starlight. "Then take the mark of our vow," he said. He pressed the blade lightly against my palm. The sting was sharp, brief. Blood welled in a perfect red line. Kale turned the knife on himself and did the same to his own hand. Then, before the watching court, he joined our palms together. "Two bloodlines bound," he said. "Two wills made one." Gasps rippled through the room. No king had ever shared such a ritual with a queen, not one born outside royal blood. Kale's voice deepened. "With this vow, your strength becomes mine, and mine yours. Break it, and the gods themselves will judge us." I felt the heat of his blood mingle with mine. For a second, it was as if fire ran through my veins. When he let go, the cut had already sealed into a faint scar. The hall erupted in murmurs and applause. Kale turned to the court. "Your queen stands before you. You will treat her as you treat me, with fear, with respect, and with silence." He rose slightly, using his chair's hidden mechanism to support his weight. The nobles gasped. Even standing half upright, he looked commanding, terrifyingly alive. Then his gaze fell upon my stepmother. "Lady Corvina Vale," he said. "Step forward." She froze, the color draining from her face. Kale's tone softened, but only slightly. "You sold your daughter to save your fortune. For that, you might expect punishment. But you will be rewarded instead for your cleverness." He nodded to a guard, who stepped forward carrying a sealed scroll. "You are hereby granted a pardon for your debts and will receive the estate of Black Hollow. You may live there in peace, but you are forbidden from returning to this palace or contacting the queen again. Ever." My stepmother's lips parted in shock. "Your Majesty." "Do not mistake mercy for favor," Kale interrupted coldly. "Go before I change my mind." The guards led her away, Seren trailing behind, looking back at me with something that might have been hatred or envy. Kale turned back to the court. Let the realm see what happens when deceit meets power. Now bow to your queen. As one, the nobles knelt. Hundreds of heads bowed in silent submission. My heart pounded as I stood beside him, still feeling the heat of his hand in mine. Kale leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. Do you see now, Lyra? Even chains can become crowns when worn by the right hands. When the ceremony ended, I returned to my chamber. The weight of the day settled over me like a second gown. My palm throbbed where the blade had touched, the scar glowing faintly in the candlelight. Lady Helena entered quietly. You handled yourself well, Your Majesty. I feel like a puppet, I said softly. Even puppets can cut their strings, she replied. You only need the will to do so. Before I could ask what she meant, she bowed and left. I stood before the mirror, studying the faint scar across my hand. Kale's words echoed in my mind. Even chains can become crowns. I wasn't sure if it was a warning or a prophecy. That night, the palace was alive with whispers. The storm had returned, rain tapping against the windows like impatient fingers. I couldn't sleep. The silence of the royal wing pressed in from every side. Finally, I rose, wrapping a shawl around my shoulders, and walked into the corridor. Guards bowed as I passed but said nothing. The further I walked, the colder the air grew, until I found myself before a set of tall, carved doors. A voice from within said, "Enter." I hesitated, then obeyed. Kale sat by the fire again, dressed in a dark robe. The flames painted his face in gold and shadow. On the table beside him lay maps, letters, and a single silver dagger. I expected you sooner, he said without looking up. I couldn't sleep. Neither can I, he murmured. The throne rarely allows peace. He gestured for me to sit. I took the chair across from him. For a while, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the fire crackling and the rain outside. Finally, he said, "Do you know why I asked you to swear that vow publicly? To make them respect me, I guessed. To make them fear you," he corrected. Fear is stronger than respect. It lasts longer. He leaned back, watching the flames. This court feeds on weakness. You cannot afford to show any. I don't want to be feared, I said. His gaze met mine. Then you will be destroyed. The words were blunt, cruel even, but his tone held no malice, only truth. I've seen good people fall because they tried to be kind, he continued. This world doesn't reward kindness. It devours it. Then why did you choose me? I asked quietly. You said it was because I was kind. He looked at me, and for a heartbeat, his guard slipped. Because kindness is not the same as weakness. You were kind when you had nothing to gain. That makes you dangerous, Lyra. He rolled his chair closer, the wheels whispering against the floor. You see things others don't. You feel what they've forgotten to feel. I need that. What do you need me for? To remind me what it means to still have a heart. The words caught me off guard. I searched his face for a trace of jest, but there was none. Only a quiet, heavy weariness. Was it always this way? I asked. The court, the fear, the blood. He stared into the fire. No. Once, there was laughter in these halls. Before the war. Before the betrayal. The one that I stopped myself. That left me like this, he finished for me, his voice low. Yes. A blade meant for my brother found me instead. They said it was fate. I say it was treachery. I hesitated. Do you know who did it? He smiled, but it wasn't pleasant. I have my suspicions. But proof is harder to find when everyone wears masks. He reached for a parchment on the table and slid it toward me. It was filled with names, council members, generals, noble families. Some names had been crossed out, others circled. These, he said, are the ones who might have betrayed me. You will meet them. You will learn who they are beneath their smiles. You want me to spy again. I want you to survive, he said. Knowing who your enemies are is the only way to do that. He reached for a small, sealed letter and handed it to me. Keep this hidden. Read it only when you are alone. What is it? A truth that will change everything you think you know about your family. My chest tightened. About my father? He didn't answer. His gaze returned to the fire. Some truths are better read in silence. I clutched the letter, unsure whether to thank him or curse him for it. After a long pause, Cale said softly, "Tomorrow I leave for the Northern Front. The Blackwood clans have risen again. I will end this rebellion myself." "But you," I began, then stopped. He smiled faintly. "You mean because I cannot walk? I command an army, Lyra. I do not need legs to crush an enemy. When will you return?" "When the gods are satisfied," he said, eyes gleaming with some private fire. "Until then, you will rule in my stead." My heart thudded. "Rule? You are queen," he said simply. "The council will resist, of course, but they will obey if you remind them what happens to those who disobey me." He paused, then added quietly, "Do not trust anyone but Lady Helena. And whatever happens, keep your pendant hidden. Its secret is not yet safe." I frowned. "What secret?" He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "The kind of secret men have killed for." Before I could ask more, he turned back to the fire. "Go now. Rest. Tomorrow, the throne is yours to guard." I rose slowly. "Cale," I said without thinking. He looked up, startled by the sound of his name. "Please be careful," I said. A rare softness passed through his eyes. "And you," he said quietly, "must be brave." As I left the chamber, I glanced down at the sealed letter in my hand. The wax bore the same crescent moon as my pendant. By the time I reached my room, the rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet stone and fire. I lit a candle and broke the seal. The letter contained only one line written in my father's handwriting. "If you are reading this, then the king has found you, and your mother's secret was never buried." My fingers went cold. I turned the pendant over in my palm. For the first time, I noticed tiny runes etched into the silver. I had worn it all my life, never knowing it was a key. A key to what or whose truth I had yet to discover. The next morning came with the sound of horns echoing across the valley. From my chamber window, I saw banners fluttering in the cold wind, black and silver, the colors of House Thorn. Soldiers filled the courtyard, preparing for war. Horses snorted and stamped their hooves, their armor glinting in the pale dawn. King Cale sat at the center of it all, commanding like a man born of steel. Though he could not stand, his presence dominated the field. His captains surrounded him, listening intently as he gave his orders. He looked every inch the king, powerful, unreadable, terrifyingly calm. I stood behind a pillar, watching. Part of me wanted to call out to him, to ask him not to go. But I knew he wouldn't listen. The king didn't bend to fear, not even his own. Lady Helena found me there, silent and tense. "He leaves within the hour," she said softly. "I thought kings didn't ride to war themselves," I murmured. "He isn't most kings," she replied. "He doesn't believe in letting others fight his battles. Even now, when the wounds of his past still chain him to that chair, he leads from the front." I swallowed hard. "And if he doesn't return? Then you must become the ruler he believes you can be," Lady Helena said. "He trusts you with the kingdom while he's gone. Don't let that trust go to waste." Before I could answer, the guards sounded another horn. Cale looked up toward the balcony where I stood, his gaze meeting mine through the morning mist. For a moment, all the noise faded away, the soldiers, the shouting, the clanging of metal, gone. He raised his hand slightly. I pressed my palm to my chest in return. Then he turned away and was gone, swallowed by the tide of soldiers marching toward the north gate. By noon, the palace felt empty. The echo of boots and commands had vanished, leaving behind silence that pressed against the walls. Only the crows remained, circling high above the towers. I tried to focus on my duties, as Lady Helena instructed. The council had gathered, waiting to see how easily they could break the new queen. The chamber was filled with old men in fine robes, each wearing an expression that hovered between politeness and disdain. At the head of the table sat Duke Vorian Rail, the man Cale had circled in his list of possible traitors. He was tall, silver-haired, and far too charming. His smile looked kind, but his eyes were as sharp as knives. Your Majesty, he said smoothly, bowing slightly. It is an honor to serve under your rule in the king's absence. Serve, I repeated, keeping my voice even. Yes. That's what you all swore to do. He smiled. Of course. But as the king's condition limits his mobility, the council has long assisted with decision-making. Naturally, we will continue to do so. I'll make the final decisions, I said quietly. As His Majesty commanded. A flicker of irritation crossed his face before the smile returned. Naturally, Your Majesty. You'll find the duties of governance demanding. Especially for someone so new to them. We only hope to ease your burden. I'll manage, I said. You may all rest assured, I'm not as fragile as I look. The room went still. Even the sound of the fire crackling seemed to fade. Varian inclined his head. Of course. As the meeting continued, I listened more than I spoke, just as Kale had told me. Every man around that table measured his words carefully, but their eyes betrayed them. They didn't respect me. Not yet. But by the end of the day, they would learn that a queen's silence was not ignorance, it was observation. When the council adjourned, I remained behind. Lady Helena entered quietly, her expression unreadable. You held your ground well, she said. They think I'm weak, I said. That I'll break without him here. They all thought the same of him once, she said. Now they bow. I turned to her. Do you trust Duke Varian? Her face hardened. Trust him? No. Fear him, yes. He's a man who never acts without purpose, and his purpose rarely serves the crown. He was on the king's list, I said. One of the names circled. Then you must watch him closely, Lady Helena said. But don't let him see that you're watching. That night, I opened Kale's journals, the ones he'd hidden beneath his desk. The ink was faded in some places, smudged in others. Each entry was sharp, calculated, written like battle plans rather than confessions. Day 412 since the fall. The poison that crippled my legs was brewed by alchemists from the Blackwood clan. But the contract was signed by someone in this court. I ran my fingers over the ink, my heart pounding. Another entry read, if I fall, the crescent seal will reveal the truth. It must be protected until the rightful hands can open it. The crescent seal. My pendant. I touched it again, feeling the weight of it against my skin. What secret did it hold? And how was my family tied to this? 2 days later, a raven arrived from the north. The letter was sealed with the king's crest. I broke it open with shaking hands. The battle begins tomorrow. The enemy's movements are clever, too clever. There's a traitor still among us. Guard the throne until I return. Do not trust the council. Watch the Duke. Kale. I folded the letter carefully and hid it inside my journal. Outside, thunder rumbled again, a storm building not in the sky, but in the walls of this palace. And I was standing at its center. The days passed like ghosts, quiet and slow. Kale's absence left the palace hollow, but danger thrived in the silence. Whispers grew in the corridors. Servants carried trays past me with lowered eyes, but I could hear the fear behind their hurried steps. The court was changing. Duke Varian visited often, too often. He came under the pretense of offering counsel, but I could see the calculation in his every word. One afternoon, he found me in the library. I sat by the window, pretending to read, while the storm clouds gathered again over the hills. Your Majesty, he said, bowing with that same polished grace. I hope you don't mind my intrusion. I was told you spend much time here. I prefer quiet places, I said without looking up. Ah, he said, stepping closer. Quiet can be dangerous in a palace. It makes people forget they're being watched. I finally looked at him. Are you warning me or threatening me, Duke? He smiled. Neither, my queen. Merely, observing. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You are far more clever than they think. But cleverness without allies is a lonely weapon. I have all the allies I need, I said. He chuckled softly. Do you? The king is far away. The council wavers. The people whisper that you're a ghost bride, beautiful, cursed, and alone. I set my book down. Then perhaps they should be careful not to anger a ghost. For the first time, his smile faltered. He bowed lightly. Forgive my boldness, Your Majesty. I only meant to help. Help yourself, you mean, I said. You always do. He hesitated, then turned to leave. I see now why the king chose you. You're more dangerous than you seem. When he was gone, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. That evening, I opened the sealed letter Cale had given me before leaving, the one I had kept hidden beneath my pillow. The wax broke easily. Inside, his handwriting was quick but careful. Lyra, if this reaches you, it means the war has turned. There is something I must tell you about your father. He was no traitor, he was my spymaster. The man who protected me from the inside, who died because he refused to join the conspirators who poisoned me. His legacy is hidden within the crescent seal. Use it well. But trust no one, not even those who claim loyalty. My vision blurred as I read the words again and again. My father, loyal? My entire life, I had been told he died a failure, a coward who lost everything. Lady Helena's words from days ago returned to me. Even puppets can cut their strings. Now I understood. My father had died trying to cut his. That night, I examined my pendant by candlelight. I ran my finger over the small crescent, then over the tiny star cradled within it. When I pressed the star slightly, it clicked. The pendant split open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a folded piece of parchment, brittle with age. My heart pounded as I unfolded it. It was a map. Not of the kingdom, but of the palace, marked with secret tunnels, hidden rooms, and one spot circled in red, the chamber beneath the library. I whispered to myself, Father, what did you leave me? I knew I had to go. The palace was quiet that night. I took a lamp and slipped through the halls, avoiding the guards. The floorboards creaked under my bare feet as I descended the winding stairs that led to the library. I found the shelf marked on the map, the one lined with books about ancient laws. I pushed it gently, and it moved, revealing a narrow stone passage. Dust filled the air, thick and dry. My lamp's flame flickered weakly. The tunnel led downward, deeper into the cold earth, until I reached an iron door. I pressed the pendant's crescent against the lock. To my astonishment, it turned, the door opened with a groan. Inside was a small room lined with shelves stacked with scrolls and letters. My father's handwriting covered the walls, messages, codes, records. This was no ordinary hiding place. It was his archive, his secret world. I read the first letter I found. The Duke grows bolder. His alliance with the Blackwood clan strengthens. If I fall, Cale must be warned. The poison is ready. They plan to strike at the spring feast. My breath caught. Duke Varian. It was him all along. I grabbed several scrolls, stuffing them into a satchel. I had to tell Cale. I had to send word before it was too late. But as I turned to leave, a voice echoed from behind me. So, it said, smooth and venomous. The little queen has found her father's tomb of secrets. Duke Varian stepped from the shadows, a torch in his hand, a smile curling his lips. I warned you that quiet places are dangerous, he said. You should have listened. My heart pounded, but I didn't move. You killed my father. He tilted his head. Killed? No, my dear. He killed himself, with loyalty. You'll learn the same lesson soon. He raised his hand, signaling the guards behind him. Take her. The king will never know she disappeared. But before they could reach me, I swung the lamp at the shelf. Fire burst across the parchment, flames leaping high. The guards shouted as smoke filled the air. I ran through the tunnel, coughing, clutching the satchel close. Behind me, Varian's voice echoed through the smoke. Run, little queen. Run while you still can. The throne will be mine before your crippled husband ever returns. I burst through the secret door into the library, slamming it shut behind me. My lungs burned, but I didn't stop. I had to reach Lady Helena. Somewhere outside, the storm had broken again. Rain battered the windows like drums of war. And for the first time since my wedding, I truly understood what kind of game I was playing, a game of thrones, lies, and shadows. And I was no longer anyone's pawn. The storm didn't stop until dawn. By then, the fire in the secret chamber beneath the library had burned itself out, leaving only ash and ruin behind. I spent the rest of the night hiding in my room, the satchel of stolen documents clutched tightly to my chest. My hands were still streaked with soot, and the smell of smoke clung to my hair. When the first light touched the horizon, Lady Helena entered without knocking. Her eyes found the satchel immediately. She didn't ask how I got it or why it was hidden. She simply closed the door and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the map inside the pendant, the secret chamber, the scrolls, and Duke Varian's sudden appearance. Her expression didn't change as she listened, but when I finished, she whispered, "The Duke moved faster than I expected." "You knew?" I asked, voice rising. "You knew what he was capable of?" "I suspected," she said, steady as stone. "But knowing and proving are not the same. You've done what no one else could, you've found the truth your father died protecting." I sat down, exhausted. "The Duke wants me dead. He said the throne would be his before Kale ever returns." Lady Helena took the satchel from me and began examining the scrolls. "Then we have to send word to the king. If he knows Varian's treachery, he can act before the Duke strikes again." "How?" I asked. "His across the northern border. The council controls all ravens leaving the palace." Her lips tightened. "There are other ways, old ways. Your father used to send messages through traders and messengers disguised as merchants. I still know some who owe him loyalty." I nodded, determination building inside me. "Then I'll send the message myself." She looked at me sharply. "No. It's too dangerous. The Duke has eyes everywhere. I can't sit here and wait for him to kill me," I said, standing. "He already tried. If I don't move now, Kale will never know the truth and the Duke will win." For the first time, Lady Helena's mask of calm broke. She sighed. "You have your father's fire. It will either save you or burn everything around you." She went to the chest beside my bed and opened it. Inside was a cloak, dark as midnight, and a small dagger with a silver handle. "Take these," she said. "The cloak will hide you in the woods. The dagger, pray you won't need it." I slipped the dagger into my belt and pulled the hood over my head. Lady Helena handed me a small folded piece of parchment. "Go to the southern gate and find the merchant named Idran. Tell him the moon still rises. He'll know you come from me." I nodded. "Thank you." Her gaze softened. "Don't thank me yet. Just come back alive, Your Majesty." I left before sunrise. The corridors were empty except for a few sleepy guards, easy enough to avoid. The palace gates loomed like the jaws of some ancient beast, waiting to swallow me whole. I moved through the shadows until I reached the southern courtyard, where carts and traders were preparing to leave for the city. Among them was a man with a thick grey beard and kind eyes, loading sacks of grain onto a wagon. "Idran," I whispered. He turned, startled, then looked around quickly before nodding. "My lady. Or should I say, my queen? Lady Helena sent me," I said. "The moon still rises." That made him smile faintly. "Then I owe her another favor. Come, we'll get you out unseen." He hid me beneath a pile of blankets and empty crates in the back of his wagon. As the gate guards inspected the cargo, I held my breath, clutching the pendant tight against my chest. "Just grain and cloth for the southern villages," Idran told them. "Nothing the council cares about." The guards waved him through. When the wheels rolled over the threshold, I exhaled slowly. I was free. The road stretched long and muddy beneath the morning light. Idran didn't speak until we were well past the walls. "Lady Helena said you might carry something the king must see," he said quietly. I nodded. "Proof that one of his council betrayed him. Duke Varian." He spat to the side. "That man's name has rotted many lips. If the king knows, maybe the north won't fall to his greed." We rode for hours through rain and mist until we reached a fork in the road. Idran stopped the wagon and turned to me. "From here, I go east. But if you follow the river north, you'll find the old outpost near the cliffs. The king's soldiers still use it for messages. Give this to the captain." He handed me a small metal token marked with the royal crest. "Show them this, and they'll trust you." Thank you, I said, climbing down. He gave a small bow. For your father's sake, my queen, may the moon guide you. I walked for hours along the riverbank, the water rushing fast and cold beside me. My gown was torn, my hands scratched from thorns, but I didn't stop. The pendant swung against my neck like a heartbeat, steady and bright. By nightfall, I reached the cliffs. The old outpost stood half in ruins, a crumbling tower surrounded by fog. A single torch burned at the gate. Who goes there? A voice barked. I stepped forward, pulling back my hood. Lyra Thorne, Queen of the Shadow Kingdom. The guard froze. Your Majesty. I need your captain, I said. Now. He ran off, and moments later, a tall man in armor appeared. His face was scarred, his hair silver at the temples. I am Captain Varin. The king ordered us to guard this post. What brings you here? I held out the token Idrin gave me. I have a message for King Kale. Urgent and secret. He took it, eyes narrowing. From Lady Helena. That's enough for me. I pulled one of the scrolls from the satchel and handed it to him. This proves the Duke's betrayal. It must reach the king before the next moon. He read the first few lines and his expression hardened. If this is true, the court bleeds poison deeper than we feared. It is true, I said. My father died trying to expose it. Don't let the same happen to the king. He nodded. I'll send a rider before dawn. He'll reach the king's camp in 2 days. But you can't stay here. If the Duke's men are tracking you, this place will not be safe. I hesitated. Where should I go? He looked toward the woods. There's an abandoned monastery east of here. No one goes there now. Wait there for word. When the king knows, he'll send for you. I thanked him, then slipped back into the forest before dawn. The forest was thick with fog, the air damp and cold. Every sound made me jump, the snap of a twig, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves. I wrapped my cloak tighter and followed the faint path until I saw the shape of the monastery ahead. It was old, covered in ivy and moss, its stones cracked but still standing. I found shelter in a small chapel at the center, lighting a fire with broken bits of wood. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to rest. I pulled the pendant off and stared at it in the firelight. Inside that tiny silver crescent, my father's secret had led me here, and perhaps it would save the king's life. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end of it. Duke Varian would not stop. Not until I was silenced. And I had no intention of being silenced. 3 days passed before I saw another living soul. The forest was quiet except for the sound of rain dripping from the leaves. I survived on what little food I'd brought, waiting for a sign that the captain's rider had reached the king. On the 4th morning, I heard the crack of branches outside. I drew the dagger Lady Helena had given me and pressed myself against the wall. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. Your Majesty, a voice whispered. It was the captain. He stepped into the light, soaked from rain, his cloak torn. I bring word from the king. My heart leapt. He got the message. Yes. He lives because of it. Your warning came just in time. The Duke's allies set an ambush near the Frost Valley. The king's men crushed them, but he was injured. Injured? I said, stepping forward. How badly? Not mortal, he assured me. He commands still. But he sends this. He handed me a sealed letter marked with Kale's crest. My hands trembled as I broke it open. Lyra, my queen. Your courage saved me. The traitors lie in ashes, though the war is not yet done. You have proven yourself far more than what they said you were. The council must not know you live outside the palace. Return in secret and hold your ground. Pretend to trust them. Let them reveal themselves. And Lyra, keep the pendant safe. The truth inside it is not yet finished revealing itself. Kale. I closed my eyes, breathing out slowly. He was alive. And he trusted me to finish what he started. I must return, I said. The captain frowned. It's too dangerous. The Duke will expect it. That's exactly why I have to go, I said. If he thinks I'm hiding, he wins. If he thinks I'm gone, he grows bold. I need to see what he'll do when he believes no one is watching. The captain hesitated, then nodded. Then you'll need a disguise. Take my cloak and this letter. If anyone stops you, say you're a messenger from the northern front. By nightfall, I was on the road again. I entered the capital under the cover of darkness, hood drawn low. The streets were quieter than I remembered, lined with guards bearing the Duke's insignia instead of the King's. The palace loomed ahead, its towers black against the moonlight. I crept through the servants' gate and made my way toward the eastern wing. Inside, everything looked the same, yet it all felt wrong. The banners of House Thorn had been removed. The Duke's crest, a silver hawk, hung in their place. I slipped through the shadows until I reached my chamber. To my relief, it remained untouched. Lady Helena stood by the window, waiting. "You're alive," she whispered, rushing to me. "By the gods, we thought he'd caught you." "He nearly did," I said. "But I found proof. And I sent it to the king. He knows everything now." She exhaled in relief. "Then we still have a chance." I glanced around the room. "What's happened here?" "The Duke declared himself regent 3 days ago," she said grimly. "He claims the king is dead and that you're too distraught to rule. He plans to crown himself within the week." "Then he's moving faster than I thought," I murmured. "Good. That means he'll make mistakes." Lady Helena looked at me curiously. "What are you planning?" I met her eyes. "If the Duke wants a queen too weak to lead, I'll give him one. I'll play his game until he shows his hand, and when he does, I'll strike." She smiled faintly. "Deception suits you, my queen." "It's not deception," I said, pulling off my cloak and setting the pendant against my heart. "It's justice, my father's, my king's, and mine." That night, the halls of the palace echoed once more with the sounds of whispers and secrets. But this time, I wasn't afraid. Because the little girl they sold was gone. In her place stood a queen forged in fire, ready to turn her chains into weapons. And the game of shadows had only just begun. The next morning, the palace felt colder than ever. Every corridor was guarded by the Duke's soldiers, their armor gleaming like frost, their eyes sharp and suspicious. They bowed when I passed, but I could see the doubt behind their rigid posture. To them, I was already a fallen queen, a relic of a rule they believed had ended. I played my part well. I wore a soft expression, spoke gently, and pretended to be fragile. I allowed the courtiers to see what they wanted: a woman lost without her husband, a grieving bride who posed no threat. Beneath that mask, however, my mind was sharper than ever. Lady Helena and I met each night in secret. We used the servants' passages to move unseen, whispering plans under the cover of darkness. The king's last letter burned in my memory: "Let them reveal themselves." It didn't take long. By the 3rd day of my return, the Duke began visiting me again. He was all honeyed words and false concern, pretending to console me. "You must be so lonely, Your Majesty," he said as we walked through the gardens. "To lose a husband so young." I kept my eyes on the fountain. "I still believe he'll return," I said softly. Varian smiled as if pitying me. "Hope is a lovely thing. Dangerous, but lovely. And what would you do, my lord, if you were me?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I would protect myself. The court is a storm, and you are standing in its center. Align with me, and I can shield you from its wrath." I met his gaze, letting my lips tremble just slightly. "Shield me? From what?" He smiled thinly. "From what's coming." He turned away before I could reply, but his words stayed with me. That night, Lady Helena listened as I repeated the conversation. "He's preparing to make his move," she said grimly. "Once he feels untouchable, he'll seize the throne outright. Then we'll have to move faster," I said. I spread Kale's journals across the table. One page caught my eye: a map sketched in fading ink. It looked like a copy of the palace's layout, but marked with strange symbols, and a note in Kale's hand: "Beneath the old chapel, where ghosts whisper, the truth sleeps." "What is this?" I asked. Lady Helena's eyes widened slightly. "The king's father once built underground chambers beneath the chapel, places for the spymasters to meet unseen. Most thought they were destroyed after the war." I traced the map with my finger. Then that's where the Duke's secret must be. Helena hesitated. If you go down there, you might not return. Then I'll take that risk, I said. I'm done hiding while he destroys everything my father and Cale built. She gave me a long, proud look. You are your father's daughter. The next evening, after the last of the servants had gone to bed, I slipped into the old chapel. The air inside was thick with dust and silence. Moonlight streamed through the cracked stained-glass windows, painting broken colors on the floor. I found the small trapdoor near the altar exactly where the map showed. The hinges groaned as I pulled it open. A narrow staircase descended into darkness. With a candle in one hand and my dagger in the other, I began to climb down. The passage twisted like a serpent beneath the stone, and the air grew colder with every step. When I reached the bottom, I found a vast chamber lined with old bookshelves and crates covered in cobwebs. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, the same ones from my pendant. In the center stood a table covered with maps, letters, and sealed documents. Most were so old they fell apart at a touch, but one stood out. It was clean, recent, and marked with Duke Varian's crest. I unfolded it carefully. It was a war plan not against the Blackwood clan, but against the throne itself. The Duke had been recruiting mercenaries from the borderlands, promising them land and gold once Cale fell. He planned to claim the throne and blame the war for the king's death. Anger burned through me. Then, I noticed something else, a small silver box tucked beneath the papers. I opened it and found a ring inside. It was Cale's father's royal seal, the symbol of absolute authority. With that ring, anyone could command the armies or issue royal decrees. A rustle of footsteps echoed behind me. I turned sharply, dagger ready, but the shadows hid whoever was there. Who's there? I demanded. A familiar voice answered softly, Peace, my queen. I serve the crown. A man stepped into the light, young, dark-haired, wearing the armor of Cale's northern guard. His arm was bound in a sling, and his face was streaked with dust. Who are you? I asked. Captain Rowan, he said, bowing slightly. The king sent me ahead with orders. His army marches home. He will reach the palace within 5 days. Relief flooded through me. He's alive. Rowan nodded. Your warning saved him. He told me to find you, to protect you. But there's worse news. The Duke has sent assassins into the city. He means to crown himself before the king returns. Then we must act now, I said, clutching the map and the ring. I have what we need to expose him. But we'll need proof no one can deny. Rowan's eyes met mine. Then the ghosts beneath this chapel may help you more than you know. Your father once hid his records down here. If we find them, we find everything. We searched the chamber together. Beneath one of the crumbling bookcases, I found a hidden compartment sealed with a thin plate of iron. Rowan pried it open with his sword. Inside lay a small wooden box wrapped in cloth. I lifted it carefully. On the lid, carved faintly in my father's hand, were the words, "For the true heir of the Crescent." My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were dozens of letters, each one bearing the names of nobles and generals, proof of every bribe, betrayal, and plot that had fed the Duke's rise to power. Tears stung my eyes. He did it. He saved everything. Rowan smiled faintly. Then we have the truth. Now we just need to live long enough to show it. Before we could leave, the sound of footsteps echoed again, heavier this time. Soldiers. Run. Rowan hissed. We fled up the narrow stairs as shouts filled the chamber below. Arrows clattered off the walls behind us. One grazed my arm, but I kept moving, clutching the box tight. We burst through the chapel doors into the night. Rain poured from the sky, washing the blood from my sleeve. Rowan grabbed my hand. This way. We dashed through the gardens, ducking behind hedges and statues. When we finally reached the servants' passage near my chambers, Rowan stopped. I'll hold them off. Get to Lady Helena. She'll know what to do. I won't leave you, I said. He smiled. You're the queen. You have to. Before I could protest, he pushed me through the door and turned to face the soldiers. The last thing I saw before the passage closed was his sword flashing in the rain. I reached my room, heart pounding, drenched and shaking. Lady Helena was waiting by the fire. By the gods, she gasped when she saw me. What happened? We found proof, I said breathlessly, handing her the box. Everything my father recorded. Every betrayal. The Duke's entire network. Her eyes widened as she opened it. This could destroy him. That's the plan, I said. The king returns in 5 days. We only need to survive until then. The next morning, chaos erupted in the palace. The Duke declared that Kale's army had been slaughtered in the north and announced a grand ceremony to claim the throne. His guards doubled at every corridor, searching rooms and interrogating servants. Lady Helena and I stayed hidden, using the old servants' tunnels to move between chambers. We kept the box of letters close, wrapped in cloth. By midday, word reached us that Captain Rowan had been captured. My stomach twisted. I wanted to go to him, but Helena stopped me. If you're caught, everything dies with you. You must stay unseen. I nodded, but inside, fury burned hotter than fear. That night, I disguised myself in a servant's cloak and slipped into the lower dungeon. The smell of damp stone and iron filled the air. Torches flickered weakly against the walls. I found Rowan chained to a post, blood on his face but fire in his eyes. You shouldn't be here, he said weakly. I couldn't leave you, I whispered, kneeling beside him. I tried to pick the lock, but he shook his head. No time. The Duke plans to execute me at dawn. You need to stop him before then. I gritted my teeth. He won't get that far. I have his secrets. Tomorrow, I'll expose him before the entire court. Rowan's lips curved in a faint smile. That's the queen the king saw in you. I pressed his hand once, then fled before the guards returned. By morning, the palace was alive with celebration. Banners of silver hawks hung from every wall. Nobles and soldiers gathered in the great hall to witness the Duke's coronation. I stood in the shadows behind the balcony, dressed again in my royal gown, the box hidden beneath my cloak. Lady Helena stood beside me, pale but resolute. Are you ready? She whispered. Yes, I said. Let's end this. When the trumpets sounded, we stepped into the light. The crowd gasped. The Queen, someone cried. She's alive. Duke Varian froze at the dais, his crown halfway to his head. His face turned white, then red with rage. Guards! Seize her. I raised my voice, loud and clear. Before you do, perhaps the court would like to know why their duke wears a crown bought with treason. The hall fell silent. I threw the box open, scattering letters and seals across the marble floor. These are the words of your conspirator, proof that he poisoned the king, murdered my father, and plotted to steal the throne. Gasps rippled through the hall. The nobles bent to read the letters, many bearing their own names. Varian lunged forward, shouting, lies. Forged by a desperate girl. But before he could finish, the great doors burst open. King Kale entered, cloak torn from travel, sword gleaming in his hand. The room erupted in chaos. Your Majesty, Varian stammered. We thought you dead. Kale's voice thundered. You should have prayed it true. He advanced, each turn of his wheels deliberate and powerful. You betrayed my crown, poisoned my blood, and hunted my queen. You will answer for every drop of treachery. The Duke drew his blade, but Kale struck first. His sword cut through the man's defenses like light through shadow. When Varian fell, the hall went silent. Kale turned to me, his chest heaving. You did this, he said softly. You saved us all. Tears blurred my vision. You came back. He smiled faintly. I promised I would. As the soldiers dragged the traitor's body away, the nobles knelt. Kale reached for my hand. Rise, my queen, he said. The crown you wear was once their cage. Now it's your weapon. And in that moment, standing before the throne of fire and shadow, I knew the game was over. The hunted had become the hunter. And the queen who once trembled in chains now ruled beside her king unbroken. The rain had not stopped since the day of the Duke's fall. It poured endlessly, turning the palace courtyards into rivers of silver and mud. The city outside the walls was alive with noise, cheers, drums, bells ringing in celebration. The people believed the nightmare was over, that justice had triumphed. But I knew better. Victory in this kingdom never came without a cost. Kale's soldiers had spent days purging the palace, arresting those loyal to Varian. Some begged for mercy, others swore false innocence until the blade silenced them. I watched it all from the balcony, my hands gripping the cold marble rail. When Kale joined me, his cloak still wet from rain, I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. He'd returned a hero, but he looked every bit as haunted as when he'd left. Is it done? I asked softly. For now, he said. But treachery is like rot. Cut it once, and it grows back in the dark. He leaned against the railing, staring out at the rain. The Duke's followers still hide in the north. They will regroup. There will be another war. I turned to face him. Then we'll face it together. Kale looked at me, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. You say that as if it's simple. It is, I said. Because I've already lost everything once. I won't lose it again. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. You've grown into something dangerous, Lyra. I learned from you, I said. He almost smiled. Then perhaps I should be proud and afraid. We stood in silence, the rain whispering around us. It was strange, how the palace that once felt like a prison now felt like the center of the storm, alive, powerful, mine. 2 days later, Kale summoned me to the war chamber. Maps and documents covered the table, lit by flickering torches. There's unrest in the east, he said, pointing to a cluster of red-marked towns. Varian's allies have fled there. I plan to send an envoy to secure the borders before they regroup. An envoy? I repeated. He looked up. You. I froze. Me? You're the one they'll listen to now. You exposed the Duke. The people trust you. They see you as the queen who faced the darkness and lived. I hesitated. You trust me to speak for the crown? Kale's voice softened. I trust you more than anyone else in this kingdom. The warmth in his tone made my heart catch. He stepped closer, placing his hand over mine. I'll send Captain Rowan with you. He recovered from his wounds. You'll travel by river, it's the fastest route. Won't that be dangerous? I asked. Everything worth doing is, he said. But I'll keep eyes on the river. You'll not be unguarded. He handed me a small sealed letter bearing his crest. Deliver this to the eastern governors. And Lyra, if anything happens, open the seal on your pendant. It carries more than a secret now. What do you mean? He smiled faintly. You'll know when the time comes. By dawn, we were on the river. The boat glided through mist, the oars cutting silently through the dark water. Rowan sat at the bow, his eyes sharp, scanning the banks. I sat beside him, wrapped in a heavy cloak, the pendant cold against my skin. The king must truly trust you, Rowan said quietly. He's never let anyone leave the capital with his seal before. I'm not sure if it's trust or a test, I said, half smiling. Rowan chuckled. Maybe both. He's that kind of man. The current quickened as the river bent through a forest of willows. The air smelled of rain and wood smoke. For a while, it felt almost peaceful until I noticed the reflection of something glinting on the water. Rowan, I whispered. He turned just as an arrow sliced through the air. It missed him by inches. Ambush, he shouted. Figures emerged from the trees, 5, 6, then more, cloaked and masked, bows drawn. Mercenaries. Rowan pushed me down behind the railing as arrows thudded into the wood. Stay down. He grabbed his sword and deflected another arrow. They're after the king's seal, he said. They know what you carry. I pulled my dagger free, though my hands trembled. What do we do? Survive, he said simply. He leapt from the boat, landing on the muddy bank and slashing through the first attacker. I followed, my heart hammering in my chest. The world became a blur of shouting and steel. I fought the way Kale had taught me, to move quickly, to use my size as an advantage. I slashed one man across the arm, dodging his counterblow. Then I saw him, a tall, scarred man in black armor, holding a crossbow aimed directly at Rowan. Rowan! I screamed. He turned, too late. The bolt struck him in the shoulder, knocking him backward into the river. I ran toward the water, but 2 mercenaries blocked my path. One grabbed me by the arm, wrenching it painfully. "Where's the letter?" he snarled. I spat in his face and drove my dagger into his side. He howled, collapsing to his knees. The other lunged for me, but I slashed wildly, catching his throat. He fell without a sound. I stumbled to the water's edge, gasping. Rowan's body floated downstream, caught in the current. I dove in. The river was freezing, dragging me down, but I kicked and swam toward him, my lungs burning. I caught his cloak and pulled him to the shore, collapsing beside him. "Rowan!" I shouted, shaking him. He coughed weakly, blood staining his lips. "Still alive," he rasped. "Barely." I tore a strip from my cloak and pressed it to his wound. "You can't die now. You promised the king you'd protect me." He gave a faint smile. "You've done fine protecting yourself." Behind us, more shouting echoed through the forest. The remaining mercenaries were regrouping. "Go," Rowan gasped. "You have to finish the mission. I'll hold them off." "I'm not leaving you again." "You must," he said, his voice fading. "The river bends north. There's an old bridge. Take the path beyond it, it'll lead you to safety." I hesitated only a moment, then squeezed his hand and ran. Arrows whistled past me as I sprinted through the trees. My lungs burned, my feet slid in the mud, but I didn't stop until I reached the bridge. The sound of water roared below, black and endless. I crossed quickly, then turned to look back. There was no sign of Rowan or the mercenaries, only the rain. I pulled Cale's letter from my cloak, holding it close. "I'll finish this," I whispered. "For all of us." Then I vanished into the storm. By the time I reached the eastern outpost, the world had turned grey with dawn. My body ached, my hands were cut, but I didn't slow. I stumbled to the gate, where a young soldier stopped me, spear raised. "I bear the king's seal," I said, holding up the letter. The man hesitated, then lowered his weapon. "Forgive me, my queen. We weren't told you'd come this far alone." "I had no choice," I said. "Take me to your commander." Inside the barracks, I delivered the letter to the captain, explaining everything, the ambush, the mercenaries, Rowan's fate. His face darkened as he read Cale's orders. "The king predicted this," he said grimly. "He sent another army south last night. They'll strike the Duke's remaining allies by dawn. Then we still have a chance," I said. Before he could answer, a horn sounded from outside. The captain rushed to the window. "Riders," he shouted. "It's the royal standard." I ran to the gate as the soldiers threw it open. Through the mist, I saw him, Cale, riding at the head of his army, the black and silver banners streaming behind him. He was no longer the wounded man in a chair. He sat tall in the saddle, his legs braced in metal supports, his expression fierce and alive. When he saw me, he dismounted and crossed the courtyard, rain splashing around his boots. "You shouldn't be here," he said, breathless but smiling. "You shouldn't be riding," I shot back. He laughed, a sound I'd missed more than I realized. "I told you I'd stand again." I stared at the metal braces supporting his legs. "How?" "Pain and will," he said simply. "The healers built these with your father's old designs. Seems he left me more gifts than I deserved." I stepped closer. "You came for me." "Always," he said softly. Before I could speak again, a messenger rushed forward. "Your Majesty, scouts report enemy riders 2 miles north. The Duke's allies." Cale's eyes hardened. "Then we end this tonight." He turned to me. "You'll stay here. It's too dangerous." "I'm not hiding again," I said. "Not while you fight for what we've both bled to protect." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then stay close. We finish this together." The final battle came at dusk. The field outside the outpost became a storm of steel and mud. Cale led his men like a force of nature, his sword cutting through the chaos. I rode behind him, delivering orders, carrying messages, refusing to stay behind. The enemy was fierce but desperate. Their leader, a hulking man with Varian's crest burned into his armor, charged toward us with a roar. Cale met him head-on, steel clashing against steel. "You followed a traitor," Cale shouted, parrying the blow. "And you'll die as one." The man swung hard, but Cale's counterstrike was faster. His blade sliced through the man's chest, ending the fight in one clean motion. The field went silent. The remaining soldiers dropped their weapons, surrendering. It was over. Kale stood amidst the rain and ruin, breathing hard. I dismounted and ran to him. He looked at me, rain running down his face. It's done. For now, I said softly. Until the next storm. He laughed weakly. Then let the world bring it. I have my queen. He reached for me, pulling me close. The smell of rain and iron filled the air. For the first time, there was peace between us, real, fragile, precious peace. When we returned to the capital, the people lined the streets to greet us. Flowers fell from balconies, music filled the air. Kale rode beside me, the crowd chanting our names. That night, in the great hall, the nobles gathered once more, not for war or trial, but for renewal. Kale stood before them, crown gleaming. This kingdom has been broken by betrayal, he said. But it has been healed by courage, not mine, but hers. He turned to me. Queen Lyra, the light that guided us through the dark. Applause thundered through the hall. I stepped forward, heart pounding. Our strength was never in our thrones or swords, I said. It was in the will to rise again, no matter how many times we fall. That is what it means to be Thorn. Kale took my hand, raising it high. Then let the world remember, the crown stands not by blood, but by fire. As the crowd roared, I looked at him and smiled. The crippled king and the souled girl, two souls forged in pain, bound by trust, ruling as one. And though the river of shadows still flowed beyond the walls, for the first time, I believed we could face whatever waited within it. Together. The morning after our return was quiet, unnervingly so. For the first time in months, the palace stood still. No soldiers rushing through corridors. No cries from the courtyard. Only the distant sound of bells and the whisper of wind against stone. I walked through the great hall, the hem of my gown brushing over the marble floor. The throne sat empty, gleaming in the sunlight. I ran my fingers along its edge, feeling the cold gold beneath my touch. Once, this throne had terrified me. It was the seat of judgment, power, and blood. Now, it felt like a challenge, one that dared me to take my place and never flinch again. Kale entered quietly behind me, leaning on his cane. He moved slower these days, but his presence filled the room with the same commanding weight as ever. You've been here since dawn, he said, his voice soft but amused. I couldn't sleep, I admitted. The silence feels wrong. He smiled faintly. That's because you've grown used to war. Peace always sounds strange after chaos. I turned toward him. Is it really peace, though? Or just the quiet before another storm? Kale stopped beside me, gazing at the throne. You're thinking like a ruler already. I'm thinking like someone who knows danger never really dies, I said. He chuckled. Then you're wiser than most kings I've known. We stood together for a moment, neither speaking. Then he said, the council has called for your coronation. My coronation? He nodded. The people already see you as queen, but the council wants it made official. The first woman to rule beside a king as equal. I hesitated. You mean they finally accepted me? He gave a dry smile. No. They fear you. And fear is a kind of respect. I looked at the throne again. Then let them fear me. But I'll earn their loyalty too, my way. The week before the coronation was chaos. Seamstresses, advisors, and guards filled the palace. Everywhere I went, whispers followed. Some praised me, others doubted me, and a few plotted still, though they hid it well. Lady Helena stayed close, her sharp eyes catching every secret glance. They're testing you, she said one afternoon as I tried on the ceremonial gown, a deep crimson robe embroidered with gold thorns. They want to see if you'll bend under the pressure. Then I'll make sure I don't, I said. Helena smiled faintly. That's my queen. The night before the coronation, Kale came to my chambers. I was standing by the window, staring out at the city lights below. He closed the door behind him. You're nervous, he said. Terrified, I admitted. Everyone will be watching. Every word, every movement. He stepped closer, his gaze softening. They'll see what I see, a woman forged by fire and still unbroken. I smiled faintly. You always know what to say. He reached into his cloak and pulled something small from his pocket. It was my pendant, the crescent moon, polished and glowing faintly in the candlelight. You've carried this since the day we met, he said. But you never opened it fully. I frowned. I thought I had. The map, my father's clue. There's more, he interrupted. Your father left one final message hidden inside the metal itself. He pressed the side of the pendant, and with a click, a hidden compartment slid open. Inside was a thin strip of folded parchment. I took it, my heart pounding. The handwriting was my father's. To my daughter, Lyra. If you are reading this, it means you have found the strength I always believed you had. Remember, power is not the crown upon your head, but the truth you guard in your heart. The crown of fire is not meant to burn the weak, it is meant to light the path for those who follow. Rule with mercy when you can, and with iron when you must. Father. Tears filled my eyes. Cale reached out and brushed one away. He'd be proud of you, he said softly. I closed the pendant and held it against my chest. Then I'll make sure I deserve that pride. The coronation dawned bright and golden. Bells rang across the kingdom, echoing over the rivers and fields. The great hall was filled with nobles, soldiers, and commoners all waiting to witness history. I walked down the long aisle toward the throne, every eye fixed on me. My gown shimmered like flame, the red fabric flowing behind me in waves. The pendant rested at my throat, glowing faintly beneath the light. Cale stood beside the throne, crown in hand. When I reached him, he smiled, proud, steady, unshakable. He raised his voice, deep and commanding. Before the gods and the people, we crown Lyra Thorn, Queen of the Shadow Kingdom, Keeper of the Crescent Flame, an equal ruler beside her king. He placed the crown upon my head. It was lighter than I expected, yet it felt heavier than any weight I had ever borne. As the crowd erupted in cheers, Cale turned to me. The crown of fire suits you. I smiled. Then let's make sure it burns bright. And as the music rose and the people chanted our names, I realized something. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was ruling. But peace, I knew, was never forever. It began 2 nights after the coronation. The first whisper came from the west, reports of stolen weapons, missing soldiers, and strange sigils burned into the ground near the border. At first, I thought it was rumor. Then the bodies started to appear. Cale and I stood over the latest report in the council chamber. 3 villages burned, the messenger said, trembling. The attackers moved like shadows, no banners, no survivors. Cale dismissed him and turned to me, grim. It's too organized to be bandits. I nodded slowly. Varian's loyalists? Maybe, he said. But this feels different. Smarter. I studied the map. The pattern of attacks formed a crescent, the same shape as my pendant. My blood ran cold. They're sending a message. Cale frowned. To you? I met his eyes. To both of us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the gardens alone, the moonlight turning the roses silver. My pendant pulsed faintly, as if responding to something unseen. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint but unmistakable. Lyra. I spun around. No one was there. Lyra. The voice was soft, echoing like wind through glass. It came from the fountain, the same one where Varian once threatened me. I approached slowly, hand on my dagger. The water rippled though there was no wind. Who's there? I demanded. A figure appeared in the reflection, a woman cloaked in shadow, her face obscured. You wear the crown, she said, her voice calm and distant. But do you know what it costs? My pulse quickened. What are you? Not your enemy, she replied. Not yet. The crescent flame burns again, and with it comes the debt your bloodline owes. I owe nothing to the shadows, I said sharply. The woman's reflection tilted its head. Then why does the pendant call to me? The water rippled again, and the reflection vanished. I stepped back, heart pounding. My pendant glowed brighter, almost hot to the touch. When I opened it, a single word had appeared on the hidden parchment, one that hadn't been there before. Azrael. The next morning, I told Cale everything. He listened carefully, his expression unreadable. Azrael, he repeated. That name hasn't been spoken in a century. It belonged to a king killer, the founder of the Order of the Dagger. The same assassins who betrayed your father, I whispered. Kale nodded grimly. They were wiped out, or so we thought. If they've returned, then someone is leading them. Someone who knows the secrets of the Crescent Flame, I said. Kale looked at me, his voice low. Lyra, your father might not have been the only one who knew. The room went silent. What are you saying? I asked. He hesitated, then spoke quietly. There's one more name tied to that symbol. A woman who vanished years ago, before you were born. My mother, I whispered. Kale's expression confirmed it. I felt the world tilt beneath me. You knew. I suspected, he said. But your father never spoke of her. Only that she was powerful, too powerful. The pendant pulsed again, faintly. I swallowed hard. Then the shadows aren't after us because of the throne. They're after me. Kale took my hand. Then they'll find I'm not so easy to take from. That night, I stood at my window, staring out at the rain-soaked kingdom. For the first time, the crown felt like a chain again, heavy with secrets I hadn't asked to inherit. Somewhere beyond those walls, an ancient order had awakened. And their first message had already been delivered. I closed my eyes and whispered into the darkness, if you want me, come and try. The wind howled softly, carrying an answer I could barely hear, a whisper shaped like laughter. The game wasn't over. It had only changed. The kingdom slept beneath a crimson moon. Its light poured through the palace windows like fire, staining every shadow red. The air itself felt charged, alive, as if the heavens were holding their breath. I stood on the balcony, unable to rest. My crown lay abandoned on the table behind me, the weight of it still heavy in my mind. Kale had gone to the war council again. Reports of new attacks came daily. The Order of the Dagger was no myth, it was real, alive, and hunting. And I could feel them. The pendant at my neck burned faintly, as though reacting to the moon's light. When I touched it, a whisper rippled through my thoughts. The blood moon remembers the first queen. I gasped, pulling my hand back. The voice was the same one I had heard at the fountain, soft, ancient, and female. Before I could gather my thoughts, the door opened behind me. Kale entered, his armor still dusty from the training grounds. You're awake again, he said quietly. I can't sleep. He came closer, his gaze drawn to the sky. The red moon. It hasn't risen like this in decades. The priests say it's an omen. It's not an omen, I said, my voice low. It's a warning. Kale turned sharply. You've seen something? I nodded slowly. The voice came again. She said the blood moon remembers the first queen. He frowned. The first queen? I hesitated. I think she meant my mother. Kale's jaw tightened. Then the past is coming for us, Lyra. And whatever she was part of, it didn't die with her. I looked out at the crimson sky. Then we find out what she did and why the Order wants me dead for it. By morning, the priests arrived at the palace, summoned by Kale himself. They were old, wrapped in grey robes, their faces painted with symbols of sun and shadow. Their leader, High Seer Alden, carried a staff of bone and gold. He bowed low before us in the war chamber. Your Majesties, the moon bleeds for a reason. It is a sign that the crescent flame has awakened again. The crescent flame? I repeated. The seer nodded. An ancient power, born from the first bond between light and darkness. It was said to dwell within the blood of a queen long ago, a queen who defied both gods and men. She could command life and death itself. Kale glanced at me. Her name? Alden's eyes flicked toward me. Azrael. My breath caught. The name, the same one written on my pendant. Impossible, I said. Azrael is the name of the Order's founder. She was a killer. Or perhaps, Alden said softly, she became one after the world betrayed her. I stepped back. What are you saying? That the queen who once wielded the crescent flame is your blood ancestor, Alden said. And the Order that bears her name seeks to reclaim her power through you. The chamber fell silent. Kale's expression was unreadable. Can this power be controlled? He asked finally. Alden hesitated. Only by one who accepts it completely. But if denied, it consumes its host. Kale turned to me. We'll find a way to stop this. You won't face it alone. I wanted to believe him. But deep down, I could feel the truth clawing beneath my skin. The same fire that once burned in Azrael was waking in me. That night, I dreamt of her. I was standing in a field of ashes beneath a sky filled with falling stars. A woman walked toward me, tall, graceful, her hair as black as the night itself. Her eyes glowed faintly red. "Do you know me?" she asked. "You're Azrael," I said. She smiled faintly. "Once. But names change. I was the first queen to wear the crescent flame. You are the last. Why are you haunting me?" Her gaze softened. "Because the power we carry was never meant to die. It chooses a vessel every age. When your mother refused it, it sought you instead." "I don't want it," I said, shaking my head. "I don't want any of this." She stepped closer, her voice quiet. "It's not about wanting. It's about destiny. And destiny doesn't ask permission." Her hand touched my chest, right where the pendant rested. "When the moon bleeds a second time, the flame will awaken fully. Then you must choose, wield it, or burn." Before I could answer, fire erupted around us. Azrael vanished, leaving only her whisper behind. "The blood moon remembers." I woke with a scream, the pendant blazing hot against my skin. Kale rushed into my room, sword drawn. "Lyra." "I saw her," I gasped. "Azrael." "She said the power will awaken when the moon bleeds again." Kale knelt beside me, gripping my hands. "Then we prepare for it. We'll find a way to bind it before it consumes you." "How?" I whispered. "You can't fight what you can't see." He met my gaze. "Then I'll fight whatever stands between us, seen or unseen." His voice was steady, but I saw the fear flicker in his eyes. And I knew he believed I might not survive what was coming. The next week was chaos cloaked in silence. The priests sealed the palace with protective wards, muttering prayers in languages long forgotten. The soldiers whispered of ghosts haunting the halls, and servants swore they saw flames moving through mirrors. I could feel it too, the hum beneath my skin, the flicker of something vast and dangerous inside me. At night, my dreams burned. By day, my eyes caught glimpses of light that weren't there. Lady Helena tried to hide her fear, but I saw it. "You're changing," she said one morning, as I stood before the mirror. "Your eyes, they glow sometimes." "I can feel her," I said quietly. "Azrael. She's inside me." Helena touched my shoulder. "Then you must master her, not let her master you." I nodded, though inside I wasn't sure that was possible. Kale spent his days researching with the seer. When I entered the war chamber one night, I found him surrounded by scrolls. "There has to be something," he muttered. "A ritual, a cure." "There's nothing," I said softly. "You can't fix this." He looked up, frustration flashing in his eyes. "I can't lose you, Lyra." "Not now." "You won't," I said. "But maybe the kingdom will if I don't control what's coming." He stood, moving toward me. "Then we face it together." Before I could answer, a horn sounded from the courtyard. We rushed to the balcony. Fire glowed on the horizon, the outer villages were burning again. "The order," Kale growled. "They're testing us." I turned to him. "Then let me go to them." He froze. "No. I can feel them calling to me," I said. "If I go, I can end this before they reach the capital. It's too dangerous." "So is doing nothing." We stared at each other, the storm between us unspoken. Finally, he exhaled sharply. "Then I go with you." We rode out before dawn with a small battalion of soldiers. The forest loomed black around us, the air thick with the smell of smoke and blood. By midday, we reached the ruins of the old monastery, the same one I once hid in. The place was crawling with figures in dark armor, their faces hidden behind silver masks. The mark of the dagger burned on their chests. Their leader stepped forward. She wore no mask. Her face was pale, her eyes sharp, familiar in a way that made my blood freeze. "Mother," I breathed. She smiled faintly. "You look so much like him, your father." Kale's hand went to his sword. "You should be dead." She looked at him calmly. I was. Until the flame woke me. I took a step forward, my voice shaking. Why? Because the gods lied to us, she said. They gave us the flame, then cursed us for using it. They made us monsters for wanting freedom. You're leading the order? I am the order, she said simply. And I came for you, my daughter. The flame belongs to our blood, to me, or to you. I'll never join you, I said. She smiled sadly. Then I'll take it from your corpse. She raised her hand. Fire exploded outward, red and black. Kale shouted my name, pulling me behind him as the blast tore through the ground. I felt the pendant flare, the heat searing into my skin. The world around me slowed, every sound fading into a low hum. The flame was awake. I could see everything, every spark of life, every drop of blood, every lie carved into the air. My mother's fire met mine, but mine burned brighter. You don't control me, I said, my voice echoing with power. You never will. I raised my hand, and the fire around us turned white. It swallowed her flames, her soldiers, everything. When the light finally faded, only ashes remained. Kale lay on the ground, his armor scorched, his eyes wide with awe and fear. Lyra, he whispered. I sank to my knees beside him, trembling. It's over. He looked up at me, voice weak. Is it? I glanced at my hands, still glowing faintly with light that wasn't mine. No, I said softly. It's just beginning. At dawn, we returned to the capital in silence. The people bowed when we entered the gates, their cheers rising into the sky. To them, I was their savior, the queen who burned darkness itself. But I knew better. The flame had chosen me, not out of kindness, but because it needed a vessel. As I stood on the balcony that night, the wind cold against my face, Kale joined me. Are you afraid? He asked quietly. Yes, I said. But I'll never let it win. He nodded, taking my hand. Then let the gods tremble. And beneath the pale dawn light, the crescent flame burned within me, silent, waiting, eternal. Because I was no longer just a queen. I was the fire itself. Wow, what a twist. The queen's fire has only just awakened, and you can already feel the storm building. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that like button, it helps more people discover this story. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think will happen next. Will Lyra master the flame, or will the shadows consume her? And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of the Queen of Shadows. Until then, remember, every spark can start a revolution.